My name is Luksik. Thank you so much for coming. Let me tell you just a few things about myself first. I live in Johnstown. My husband and I have been married for nearly 31 years. We are the proud parents of 6 children. They are all girls, except for 5 of them. It's an IQ joke. How fast did you get it? They range in age from 27 to 15. So my oldest is newly married. He's an architect. My daughter is 24. She's a classical ballerina. I have a son who's a petty officer in the Navy. He teaches nuclear technology to new recruits. I have a son who's an opera singer, a son who's an electrical engineering student, and a 15-year-old sophomore in high school. I am the daughter of an Army veteran, so we're a divided house. The question I get asked the most is, why are you running for Senate? There's many reasons, but there's always one moment. For me, that moment happened in front of the Pennsylvania Senate Appropriations Committee. I was testifying on behalf of the Marriage Protection Amendment. You know that marriage is a man and a woman, as opposed to any of those other definitions out there. And one of the senators didn't particularly like what I had to say. And so we had a very vigorous discussion. And his side of vigorous got louder and louder. And finally, he looked at me and said, "Stop talking. You are nobody. You can't talk unless I tell you that you can talk. If you want to talk and make me listen, you run for Senate, and then I'll have to listen to you." Ta-da! He's in jail. I'm going to the Senate. I think it's a good arrangement myself. 2010 is going to go down in history as either the year that America died or the year that a whole new group of patriots stepped up to the plate to restore the freedoms that this country was endowed with from the very beginning of its existence. To understand that, we need to look at what those freedoms are. Now, I know I'm running for Senate. Everybody is focused on firing Arlen Specter, and while that's a fun thought, and I will give it to you, you are not just firing. You are replacing. And the person that you replace that incumbent with is as important as the incumbent that you send into a well-deserved retirement. So you need to carefully evaluate who you want to be your next U.S. Senator. This country was founded on an idea. It began by saying that you were endowed with rights by a creator. If there is no creator, you are not endowed. I am the only candidate who has the nerve to stand up and say that in every public forum. It said you have inalienable rights. Your right to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. There are a lot of candidates out there, including my opponent, who say they're mostly pro-life. That's like a woman saying she's mostly pregnant. You either are pro-life or you aren't pro-life. We said that this was a country formed on a basis of the United States Constitution. If we don't begin the debate there, we don't have any place else to go. I am, again, the only candidate willing to stand up and make the Constitution the basis of every argument that I make. So look at who you're replacing with. The best legal code ever written fit on 2 stone tablets. Yep. You're probably familiar with it. It was 10 lines. And the reason it was the best was because it said, "Thou shalt not." In other words, it set boundaries and said, as long as you live inside these boundaries, we're good to go. The United States Constitution fits in your back pocket. Yes. The healthcare bill was 2,700 pages long. It said, this is what the government's supposed to do. This is what the government is not supposed to do. They built a federal government that was a fence around the nation, so that within the fence, families would have the freedom and stability to build communities, to build businesses, and to build lives. In the past 40 years, the federal government has broken the fence and invaded the field, putting pieces of fence between us, dividing us, taking us apart. That's called tyranny, and tyranny is always expensive. If you don't address the tyranny, you can't solve the expense. We talked at the beginning about selecting the candidate. Understand, that person's going to sit in that chair for 6 years. You get to decide what philosophy you want that person to hold. I am the only candidate who is willing to say God and fundamental rights and life and the Constitution and who makes decisions based more on right and wrong than on right and left. If you want your country back, the long and short of it is, you need me to be the person sitting in that Senate seat come January of 2011. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. You have 2 more minutes if you want more closing comments.
You should never give the woman the last word. I talked to you about the Constitutional Compact. It is in the back. Please pick it up, 10 steps. I'm going to run through them quickly. We talked about constitutional authority, balancing the budget, no tax increases, destroy the IRS, no congressional exemptions. If Congress passes a law, Congress lives with the law. We don't have a ruling class in America. Deal with illegal immigration. Step 1, close the borders. Stop digging. Reassert American sovereignty. In other words, we never give control of our military or our courts to any entity that is not answerable to the American citizen. American soldiers wear American uniforms, no others. Audit the Federal Reserve, restore energy independence, and repeal the health care bill. 10 steps. They're in the back.
Jobs.
Energy independence is the fastest way to get jobs. Those are good jobs, they pay well, and it's levels of growth that is permanent for us. You're asking, thank you all for coming. On May 18th, there's an election. It's not enough if you just vote. It's just not. You need to bring people with you to the polls. There's lots of things that happen around elections. You're going to see commercials and signs and bells and bangles and buttons. Commercials don't vote, signs don't vote, bells and bangles and buttons don't vote. People vote. If you want to win this election, in the back we have, it's called Peg's Team. Pick it up. It's 25 blanks on a paper. You're responsible to deliver yourself and 25 more Republican voters, if you're a Republican, to the polls on Election Day. And it tells you how. People say, but signs and everything. You know, when Washington crossed the Delaware, he didn't put out any signs to tell the Brits he was coming. He just showed up and threw him out of Philadelphia. On May 18th, we just got to show up and throw him out of Washington and Harrisburg. Thank you.